It's Thursday, March 17th, 9:32 a.m. I'm going to read Chapter 5 of Part 3 of Book 4, The Formula of IAO. This formula is the principal and most characteristic formula of Osiris, of the redemption of mankind. I is Isis, nature, ruined by Apophis, the destroyer, and restored to life by the Redeemer Osiris. There is a quite different formula in which I is the father, O the mother, and A the child, and yet another in which IAO are all fathers of different kinds balanced by HHH, the three mothers, to complete the universe. In a third, the true formula of the beast sits at 6. I and O are the opposites which form the field for the operation of A. But this is a higher matter unsuited for this elementary book. See, however, Liber. The same idea is expressed by the Rosicrucian formula of the Trinity. Ex Deo nascimer, in Jesu morimer. Per spiritum sanctum revivissimus. Latin, we are born from God, we die in Jesus, we are reborn through the Holy Spirit. This is also identical with the word lux, LVX, which is formed by the arms of a cross. It is this formula which is implied in those ancient and modern monuments in which the phallus is worshipped as the savior of the world. The doctrine of resurrection as vulgarly understood is false and absurd. It is not even scriptural. St. Paul does not identify the glorified body which rises with the mortal body which dies. On the contrary, he repeatedly insists on the distinction. The same is true of a magical ceremony. The magician who is destroyed by absorption in the Godhead is really destroyed. The miserable mortal automaton remains in the circle. It is of no more consequence to him than the dust of the floor. It is, for all that, his instrument, acquired by him as an astronomer buys a telescope. See Liber LF for a full explanation of the objects attained by the stratagem of incarnation. Also, see the commentaries of Liber 220. But before entering into the details of IAO as a magic formula, it should be remarked that it is essentially the formula of yoga or meditation, in fact of elementary mysticism in all its branches. In beginning a meditation practice, there is always a quiet pleasure, a gentle natural growth. One takes a lively interest in the work. It seems easy. One is quite pleased to have started. If not, one is not working properly. This stage represents Isis. Sooner or later it is succeeded by depression, the dark night of the soul, an infinite weariness and detestation of the work. The simplest and easiest acts become almost impossible to perform. Such impotence fills the mind with apprehension and despair. The intensity of this loathing can hardly be understood by any person who has not experienced it. This is the period of Apophis. It is followed by the arising not of Isis, but of Osiris. The ancient condition is not restored, but a new and superior condition is created, a condition only rendered possible by the process of death. The alchemists themselves taught this same truth. The first matter of the work was base and primitive, though natural. After passing through various stages, the black dragon appeared, but from this arose the pure and perfect gold. Even in the legend of Prometheus we find an identical formula concealed, and a similar remark applies to the fable of Jesus and many other mythical godmen worshipped in different countries. See J.G. Fraser's The Golden Bow, J.M. Robertson's Pagan Christs, Crowley's Liber 888, Jesus, etc. A magical ceremony constructed on this formula is thus in close essential harmony with the natural mystic process. We find in the basis of many important initiations, notably the 3rd degree in Masonry and the 5/6 ceremony of the Golden Dawn. A ceremonial self-initiation may be constructed with advantage on this formula. The essence of it consists in robing yourself as a king, then stripping and slaying yourself, the rising from that death to the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel. This formula, although now superseded by that of Horus, the crowned and conquering child, remains valid for those who have not yet assimilated the point of view of the law of Thelema. But see Liber. Compare also the Book of the Spirit of the Living God, where there is a ritual given in extenso on slightly different lines. The Equinox, pages 269 through 272. There is an etymological identity between Tetragrammaton and IAO, but the magical formulae are entirely different, as the descriptions here given have shown. Professor William James, in his Varieties of Religious Experience, has well classified religions as the once born and the twice born, but the religion now proclaimed in Liber Legis harmonizes these by transcending them. There is no attempt to get rid of death by denying it, as among the once born, nor to accept death as the gate of a new life, as among the twice-born. With the AA, life and death are equally incidents in a career, very much like day and night in the history of a planet. But to pursue the simile, we regard this planet from afar. A brother of the AA looks at what another person would call himself as one, or rather some, among a group of phenomena. He is that nothing whose consciousness is in one sense the universe considered as a single phenomena in time and space, and in another sense is the negation of that consciousness. The body and mind of the man are only important, if at all, as the telescope of the astronomer is important to him. If the telescope were destroyed, it would make no appreciable difference to the universe which the telescope reveals. It will now be understood that this formula of IAO is a formula of Pt.III. The magician who employs it is conscious of himself as a man liable to suffering, and anxious to transcend that state by becoming one with God. It will appear to him as the supreme ritual as the first step, but as has already been pointed out, for the normal man today, however, it represents considerable attainment, and there is a much earlier formula whose investigation will occupy Chapter 6. The Master Therion in the 17th year of the Aeon has reconstructed the word IAO to satisfy the new conditions of magic imposed by progress. The word of the law being Thelema, whose number is 93, this number should be the canon of a corresponding mass. Accordingly, he has expanded IAO by treating the O as an Aeon, and then adding Vav as prefix and affix. The full word is then Vav Yod Aleph Aeon Vav, whose number is 93. We may analyze this new word in detail and demonstrate that it is a proper hieroglyph of the ritual of self-initiation in this Aeon of Horus. For the correspondences in the following note, see Liber 777. The principal points are these. Yod Aleph Vav, or IAO, varies in significance with successive eons. The Aeon of Isis, matriarchal age. The great work conceived as a straightforward, simple affair. We find the theory reflected in the customs of matriarchy. Parthenogenesis is supposed to be true. The virgin Yod, Virgo, contains in herself the principle of growth, the epicene hermetic seed. It becomes the babe in the egg, A. Harpocrates, by virtue of the spirit, Aleph, air, impregnating the mother vulture, and this becomes the sun or sun, Vav, the letter of Pt.III, 6, even when spelt as Omega in Coptic. The Aeon of Osiris, patriarchal age, 2 sexes. Yod, conceived as the father wand, Yod in Tetragrammaton. Aleph, the babe is pursued by the dragon who casts a flood from his mouth to swallow it. See Revelation 12. The dragon is also the mother, the evil mother of Freud. It is Harpocrates, threatened by the crocodile in the Nile. We find the symbolism of the ark, the coffin of Osiris, etc. The lotus is the yoni, the water the amniotic fluid. In order to live his own life, the child must leave the mother, and overcome the temptation to return to her for refuge. Kundry, Armida, Jocasta, Circe, etc. are symbols of this force which tempts the hero. He may take her as a servant when he has mastered her, so as to heal his father Amfortas, avenge him Osiris, or pacify him Jehovah. But in order to grow to manhood, he must cease to depend on her, earning the lance, Parzival, claiming his arms, Achilles, or making his club, Hercules. Note that all these three remain for a time as neuters among women, prevented from living the male life, and wander in the waterless wilderness like Krishna, Jesus, Oedipus, and so on, until the hour when the king's son, or knight-errant, must win the princess, and set himself upon a strange throne. Almost all legends of heroes imply this formula in strikingly similar symbols. Bob the sun is sun. He is supposed to be mortal, but how is this shown? It seems an absolute perversion of truth. The sacred symbols have no hint of it as far as I can see. This lies the essence of the great sorcery. Osirian religion is a Freudian fantasy fashioned of man's dread of death and ignorance of nature. The parthenogenesis idea persists, but it is now the formula for incarnating demigods or divine kings. These must be slain and raised from the dead in one way or another. All these ideas may be explained by reference to anthropology, but this is not their condemnation but their justification. For the customs and legends of mankind reflect the true nature of the species. The Aeon of Horus, 2 sexes in one person, Vav Yod Aleph Ayin Vav, 93 the full formula, recognizing the sun as the sun, star, as the persistent manifested unit from which all springs and to which all returns. The great work is to make the final Vav Vav of Asaya, the world of material illusion, into the final Vav Yod Vav of Etzilith, the world of pure reality. Spelling the name in full, F F iota F delta, Alpha lambda pi omicron iota nu f iota equals 309. Shin and Teth 20 and 11, which is 31, the secret key of the law. Vav is the manifested star. Yod is the secret life, serpent, light, lamp, love, wand, liberty, wings, silence, and cloak. These symbols are shown in the Atu the hermit. They are the powers of the Yod, whose extension is the Vav. Yod is the hand wherewith man does his will. It is also the virgin, his essence is inviolate. Aleph is the babe, who has formulated his father and made fertile his mother. Harpocrates, etc., as before, but he develops to Aeon, the exalted devil, also the other secret eye, by the formula of the initiation of Horus elsewhere described in detail. This devil is called Satan or Shaitan, and regarded with horror by people who are ignorant of his formula, and imagining themselves to be evil, accuse nature herself of their own phantasmal crime. Satan is Saturn, Set, Abrasax, Adad, Adonis, Attis, Adam, Adonai, etc. The most serious charge against him is only that he is the sun in the south. The ancient initiates, dwelling as they did in lands whose blood was the water of the Nile or the Euphrates, connected the south with life-withering heat, and cursed that quarter where the solar darts were deadliest. Even in the legend of Hiram, it is at high noon that he is stricken down and slain. Capricornus is moreover the sign which the sun enters when he reaches his extreme southern declination at the winter solstice, the season of the death of vegetation for the folk of the northern hemisphere. This gave them a second cause for cursing the south. A third, the tyranny of hot, dry, poisonous winds, the menace of deserts or oceans dreadful because mysterious and impassable. These also were connected in their minds with the south. But to us, aware of astronomical facts, this antagonism to the south is a silly superstition, which the accidents of their local conditions suggested to our animistic ancestors. We see no enmity between right and left, up and down, and similar pairs of opposites. These antitheses are real only as statements of relation. They are the conventions of an arbitrary device for representing our ideas in a pluralistic symbolism based on duality. Good must be defined in terms of human ideals and instincts. East has no meaning except with reference to the Earth's internal affairs. As an absolute direction in space, it changes a degree every 4 minutes. Up is the same for no two men, unless one chance to be in the line joining the other with the center of the Earth. Hard is the private opinion of our muscles. True is an utterly unintelligible epithet which has proved refractory to the analysis of our ablest philosophers. We have therefore no scruple in restoring the devil worship of such ideas as those which the laws of sound and the phenomena of speech and hearing compel us to connect with the group of gods whose names are based upon Set or Daleth, vocalized by the free breath of Aleph. For these names imply the qualities of courage, frankness, energy, pride, power, and triumph. They are the words which express the creative and paternal will. Thus the devil is Capricornus, the goat who leaps upon the loftiest mountains, the godhead which, if it becomes manifest in man, makes him Igpan, the all. The sun enters this sign when he turns to renew the year in the north. He is also the vowel O, proper to roar, to boom, and to command, being the forcible breath controlled by the firm circle of the mouth. He is the open eye of the exalted sun, before whom all shadows flee away, also that secret eye which makes an image of its god, the light, and gives it power to utter oracles, enlightening the mind. Thus he is man-made God, exalted, eager. He has come consciously to his full stature, and so is ready to set out on his journey to redeem the world. But he may not appear in this true form. The vision of Pan would drive men mad with fear. He must conceal himself in his original guise. He therefore becomes apparently the man that he was at the beginning. He lives the life of man, indeed, he is holy man. But his initiation has made him master of the event by giving him the understanding that whatever happens to him is the execution of his true will. Thus the last stage of his initiation is expressed in our formula as the final Vav. The series of transformations has not affected his identity, but it has explained him to himself. Similarly, copper is still copper after copper plus oxygen equals copper-oxygen. And 2 parts hydrogen, sulfur, and 2 parts oxygen equals copper, sulfur, 4 parts oxygen, H2O. And 2 parts potassium sulfur equals copper, sulfur, 2 parts potassium sulfur, 4 parts oxygen. And blowpipe and reducing agent is copper sulfur. It is the same copper, but we have learnt some of its properties. We observe especially that it is indestructible, inviolably itself through all its adventures and in all its disguises. We see, moreover, that it can only make use of its powers, fulfill the possibilities of its nature, and satisfy its equations by thus combining with its counterparts. Its existence as a separate substance is evidence to its subjection to stress, and this is felt as the ache of an incomprehensible yearning until it realizes that every experience is a relief, an expression of itself, and that it cannot be injured by aught that may befall it. In the Aeon of Osiris it was indeed realized that man must die in order to live, but now in the Aeon of Horus we know that every event is a death. Subject and object slay each other in love under will. Each such death is itself life, the means by which one realizes oneself in a series of episodes. The second main point is the completion of the Aleph, Babe Bacchus, by the Aeon, Pan, Parzival wins the lance, etc. The first process is to find the Yod in the Vav, initiation, purification, finding the secret roof of oneself, the Epicene Virgin who is 10 Malkuth but spelt in full 20 Jupiter. This Yod in the Virgin expands to the babe in the egg by formulating the secret wisdom or truth of Hermes in the silence of the fool. He acquires the eye wand, beholding and acting and being adored. The inverted pentagram, Baphomet, the hermaphrodite fully grown, begets himself on himself as Vav again. Note that there are now two sexes in one person throughout, so that each individual is self-procreative sexually, whereas Isis knew only one sex and Osiris through the two sexes opposed. Also, the formula is now love in all cases, and the end is the beginning on a higher plane. The Yod is formed by the Vav by removing its tail, and Aleph by balancing 4 Yods, the Aeon by making an inverted triangle of Yods, which suggests the formula of Nuit, Hadit, and Rahor Kuit. Aleph is the elements whirling as a swastika, the creative energy in equilibrated action.